So tonight our class is focused on lateral flexion of the spine. We will be doing other things as well, but this is our main focus. Lots of toys we can use. You will definitely need a couple of blocks. You will definitely need a resistance band. I have one that's a bigger loop. I like this for what we're doing tonight better, but the one with handles will also work. It just might pound you in the head. So whichever one you want to use. I also have a blanket that I have rolled into a really thick kind of tube. So it's narrow and then a thick tube. And you might go ahead and do that. You also, if you have a squishy ball, you can use that instead of the rolled up blanket. And I find it to be a little bit more, I like it better, but if you don't have a squishy blanket, a squishy ball, the blanket will work. And then the final option is a weight. I'm using an 8-pound. I would maybe use something between 4 and 8 pounds if you want that option for a weight. So we are actually going to start with just some somatic movement in standing. So we're going to come up into a standing position. Turn your toes out slightly. When we do somatic movements, we're not trying necessarily to do it in the perfect way. We're just trying to move. So we're going to start going to the right side first. So you're going to reach your right arm down the right leg. Left arm can come over the head, and then you'll stand up and you'll twist to the left. You can allow the whole pelvis to move. And then the same way. So we're just going to go a few times to the right. So side crunching and then rotating to the left. Side bend to the right. Rotate to the left. So somatic also means that we're kind of in our body. We're feeling sensation. So you might start to notice where your side bend comes from. There's no necessarily right or wrong. Do you feel it more because the pelvis pushes off to the left? Or do you feel it more because your rib cage pushes off to the left? And if you answered one or the other, try it the other way. And if you don't feel anything, just keep trying to feel something. Good. So now we're going to go the other way. So left hand is sliding down the left thigh. Right arm comes over your head. Side bend to the left. Come up and twist to the right. Side bend and twist. And you'll notice I am twisting my pelvis. That's an option. You can also just try to twist the rib cage and see what that feels like. So somatically, we're just trying to get into our bodies. We're just trying to feel sensation. We're noticing areas that we might be tight. We're noticing areas that we might move into easily. We might notice how this affects our breathing. We might notice that one side moves a little differently than the other. All these things are interesting. Good. Next, we're going to go into a breathing technique to help to open up some space in the diaphragm as well as this oblique area. This is where you can either use the squishy ball or a blanket. I'm going to demonstrate it with the blanket on the first side because some of you, most of you may not have a squishy ball. So a pillow will also work. So you're going to come down onto your belly. You're going to rise up onto your left elbow and bend your right knee out to the side like a frog. You're going to place the blanket, or if you have a squishy ball, the squishy ball between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis. And you want it to be in your gut area. And then you're going to come down and rest your left ear on your hand, bring your right elbow so that when you have your elbow bent, you're looking straight into your elbow. And first, we're just going to close our eyes. Left leg is straight. We're just going to close our eyes and breathe. So between your ribs and your pelvis, you should feel that your guts in that area are supported by the blanket. Consciously start to inhale and expand that area of your belly into the blanket or the squishy ball. And as you exhale, just allow your exhale to be really long. And imagine that you are melting, that the belly flesh is melting over the blanket. So we're taking 3 deep breaths in this way, just each time sinking a little deeper. Not rushing to the next inhale, but when we do inhale, inhaling fully that area of the belly into the blanket. On the next exhale, we're going to actively try to squish the blanket between our ribs and our pelvis. So as you exhale, squish, and you'll feel that you're squishing also the rib and the pelvis towards each other. And we're going to hold for 2 full breaths. So inhale, breathe deeper into the belly, feeling it expand into the blanket or the ball. And as you exhale, squish a little deeper. Do that again. Inhale deeply into the blanket. And as you exhale, let it all go and melt. Release any tension in the back, release any tension in the hip, the knees, the shoulders, and just take 3 deep breaths the same way we did before. See if each time you exhale, you can melt a little deeper into the blanket. And on your next exhale, we're going to squish again. So as if your bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis could squish the blanket. And then take 2 full breath cycles, inhaling, holding that tension. Exhaling, creating more tension, so squishing a little bit more. Inhaling, remaining in that tension. And then exhale, let it melt. Take 1 full breath cycle, staying in this position. And on your next exhale, you're going to straighten your right leg, keep the blanket where it is or the ball where it is, and let your forehead now come to rest on both of your hands. And just wiggle your hips side to side, allowing that side oblique region to kind of be massaged by the ball or the blanket. Good. We're going to come up, and you're just going to switch it to the other side. I'm going to turn to the other side so that you can see me, but you don't have to. I'm going to show it with the ball this time. So if you happen to have a squishy ball, you can watch. The blanket is the same thing. So start lying on your belly, lift up onto your right elbow, take the ball or the blanket right between the ribs and the pelvis. It's in the belly area, so it's not on the ribs or the pelvis, it's between. And then frog the leg out. Turn your head to the left, rest your elbow. Breathing. So as you inhale, try to expand your belly into the ball or the blanket. And as you exhale, exhale fully, don't rush. And really imagine that each time you exhale, that flesh is kind of melting over the blanket. And this time, we're going to inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, squish the ball of the blanket between the pelvis and the ribs. We're going to hold that for 2 full breath cycles. So inhaling, exhaling, squishing a little bit more. Inhaling, holding that tension. Exhaling, letting the obliques melt over the ball. And then take 3 more full breaths. So just notice if you can be present in the sensation that your prop is creating. And one more time, we'll go into that active breathing. So inhale to prepare. Exhale, start to squish. Like you could squish the blanket or whatever prop you have between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your pelvis. You're holding, and on the exhale, crunching more. Inhale, hold the tension. And exhale, let it all go. Take another full breath cycle, trying to release any excess tension you're feeling anywhere in your body. And then straighten the left leg. Keep the prop underneath that side belly. You might rock the hips back and forth, creating that sensation and massage. Your head now is stacked on both of your hands. Good. And then go ahead and come up to hands and knees. You're going to remove the ball or the blanket. We will be on knees a little bit today. There's not a whole lot of knee stuff, but if you want the blanket for under your knees, have it close by, and you might want to unroll it because it's probably not very comfortable. So we're going to take one of your blocks and place it between your knees. We're going to have the other block off to our right side at the highest level. We're going to come up into tall kneeling. The block squeezing helps to stabilize the pelvis. Oftentimes, when we try to laterally flex and we don't have good control of flexion in the rib cage, we'll push the pelvis and feel like we're laterally flexing, but we're not really. We're just pushing the pelvis off to the other side. So the block is here to help us stabilize the pelvis. So walk the knees close together to the block and squeeze the block between your thighs. We're going to take your left hand behind your head, elbows pointing straight out. Take your right hand on your rib cage, right towards the bottom, and as if you're curling over your hand, and then place your hand on the block. And if this is too low, you can just continue to keep your hand on the rib cage. We're going to hold here for 3 deep breaths. As you're inhaling, you're thinking of expanding on this side. And as you're exhaling, you're thinking of closing the ribs on your right side a little bit more. Squeeze the block. And if this is about your edge, stay here. If you feel that you could go a little closer to the ground, you're going to take your block and flip it to the next level and squeeze the block, crunch the ribs, hand to the block. Elbows pointing straight up towards the sky. So we're trying to avoid rotation either towards the ground or too much of the chest up. We want the ribs to push straight out to the side. So elbows pointing straight up. And then the next level, which is hard for me, is to bring it down flat. Maybe you go to knuckle here. Squeeze the block. Inhaling into the left side of your rib cage. Exhaling, trying to squeeze the ribs closer together. Reach the left arm over your head, wherever you are. And then reach the left arm over to the left, stretch to lift out of it. Move the block to the other side. So start with it right beside your left thigh. Take your right hand, place it behind your head, elbow pointing straight out. Left hand on your rib cage. Inhale. And as you exhale, think of crunching over your hand. It's like your hand is pushing your ribs off to the right, and you're crunching, and then you take your hand down to your block. Squeeze the block. Inhale into the right side. Exhale, try to squeeze a little bit more the ribs together on the left. Notice when you start to roll the chest towards the floor or too far open. Notice if this is your edge. If it is, stay there. Otherwise, take the block down, exhale, crunch, and hold. Really finding each time you exhale that you are trying to crunch the ribs closer together. And then last level, if you so feel inclined and you're not rolling forward and you're not rolling back and you're not pushing your hip, you want to be honest with the mobility that you currently have. Going to a lower level without the mobility doesn't help you gain mobility. It's not necessarily bad, it just doesn't help. Reach right arm over and then take it off to the right. Reach to come up. Good. We're going to keep the block and we're going to sit on it. We're going to take our legs out in front. Maybe a little bit more gracefully than I did. We're going to start with our right leg out in front of us. The block's going to be off to our right side. Just sitting beside your hip. You can't see it there, but sitting beside your hip. Take your hands behind your head, elbow straight out to the side. And again, we're going to start to move somatically. So not really thinking too much about it, just kind of tilting side to side. And notice, start to feel your body as you move. Where do you feel this side movement coming from? You might bring awareness to your sit bones. Do you feel a large shift of your sit bones side to side? If you do, can you try to get heavy? You'll still feel a little bit of a shift, but can you try to be heavy and bring it more into the rib cage? So instead of shifting the pelvis, can you just shift the rib cage? Bring your hands down to your rib cage and use one hand to kind of shift the rib cage off to the side and then use the other to push it off to the side. And I find this really helpful because for me, it's hard for me to shift to my right side. It's easy for me to shift to my left side. Bring the right hand down to your block. As if you could push your block off the mat to the side. So you're going to push down, take your hand to the left side of your rib cage and push your rib cage into your left hand. So you're pushing down with your right hand and out, and you're shifting your rib cage to the left. Take your hand behind your head. Notice if you're tilting or twisting the rib cage towards your right thigh. Try to twist it straight towards the front edge of your mat. Take the arm over your head. Chin tucked, neck long. So we're not craning or cranking our neck. We're trying to keep it nice and relaxed. As you push down and away, notice how that creates a little bit of tension, like you're crunching your ribs a little closer together. Maintain that. Keep your left sit bone down, and now lift your right hand in front of your belly. So now we're asking our core, the side of our core, to hold this position. And we're going to come up straight and now actively side bend without shifting your pelvis. We're going to do that 5 times. So as you exhale, think of your hand there and that you're trying to crunch or curl your side ribs over. Hold. Take your right hand back down to the block. Twist and bring your left hand to the outside of your right knee and move your block and your hand behind your back and twist and breathe. Good. So we're doing all of these isometric movements, these little micro contractions without any resistance at this time. It's just body weight. So move the block now over to your left side. And take your hands behind your head and let's just test. Let's do a few cycles here, noticing if you feel a difference between your right and your left side. Go ahead and switch so your left leg is in front. And just notice any micro differences between your right and your left. Good. And then we're going to tilt all the way to the left hand on your block, as if you're pushing it down into the ground and away from you. And you'll notice when you actively do that, the ribs just automatically start to shift over to the right. And bring your right hand onto your right rib cage and push more the ribs into the hand. Notice if you're coming off your left sit bone, keep it down. And try to get all of the movement in the ribs. Each inhale, try to separate the ribs on the right side. Each exhale, think of your left side crunching, squishing a little bit more. And I have, this is my right side, even though I'm saying it's my left. I have a thing where I like to hike this right hip. So it's very noticeable to me when I'm trying to crunch on my right side that I'm actually trying to do it by lifting my pelvis up rather than crunching my ribs down. Not wrong, but can you do it the other way? Take your hand behind your head, crunch a little bit more. Push the block down and away from you. And then reach the arm over your head. So each time we lift the arm higher, we're loading this a little bit more. Cross your left arm in front of your belly. And if that's too much load, you can go back to either hand on the ribs, hand behind the head, or more loaded as arm over. And we're going to come out of it as you inhale. And as you exhale, really feel the crunch come in the ribs. Inhale, pop out of it. Exhale, roll. Good. 2 more. Good. Take your block behind you, hand on the block. Right hand comes over to your left hip or knee and twist. Good. You can move the blocks out of the way. We're going back onto our right side. So we're going to come into a Z-sit or mermaid, or so many names for this pose. But your left thigh above your knee is resting in the arch of your right foot. The left foot is behind you with the toes pointed back. You can use a block. If you happen to have a squishy ball, this is a great time to use a ball. I'm going to demonstrate it on the right with the block, and I'll show it on the left with the ball. If being in this position is too much, you can lift up onto your other block. So know that that's an option. The blanket is also there for you if you want to lift up onto that. Okay, so we're going to take our hand onto our right hand onto the block. You're going to start to move the rib cage off to the left and push the block out. So you're side bending on the right and lift out of it. So as you push it out to the side, hand on the rib cage, push the rib cage into the hand. Good. Exhale, side crunch on the right, push the ribs to the left. Almost as if you're crunching up over a beach ball underneath your right rib cage. Well, next time you come down, hold. Push the rib cage up into your left hand a little bit more. And then bring the elbow down to the ground. Your elbow's underneath your shoulder. Your forearm is about 45 degrees. So if this is 90 and this is 0, between is 45. That helps so that you don't collapse that shoulder forward. So stack the shoulder over the elbow. Straighten your left leg down and bring your right leg so it's just slightly in front of your hip. Your hips are stacked one on top of the other. So we're going to start by crunching the right side of your rib cage away from the floor. So find that first, and then press the right knee and the left foot into the ground to lift off. We should feel opening, space, length on the left side, crunch on the right. Tap down. Crunch first, then lift. Tap down. Crunch, lift. Tap. Crunch, lift. Tap. 3 more. You can add load for the last 3 by lifting the arm over your head and then lowering down. Find that crunch before you lift the hips and lower. 1 more crunch and lift. Good. Lower. Come back to that Z-sit and twist. So maybe your elbows are on the floor. Maybe your hands are on the floor. Maybe your right elbow's on the floor and your left hand is on the floor. Just find some place where you can breathe and let the tension go. So we're going to repeat that same thing with the option to add resistance this time. So you're going to take the strap. If you have a handle, you're going to wrap the handle around your foot. It's the left foot. And you won't be able to hold the handle to have resistance. So drop it behind your back. Otherwise, you're going to smack yourself in the face. Same thing if you are using a full loop, you won't have you won't be able to hold on to the end of it. You'll have to grab it somewhere in between. So we're going to come back down onto that elbow. Stack your hips. We're going to keep the right elbow or the left elbow bent. We're going to crunch, and then we're going to lift and pull the hand behind the head, and then lower. Crunch, lift, lower. So you don't have to have the band. You can just repeat the set without resistance. But keep the left hip stacked on top of the right hip and find the lift from the crunch of the ribs. Good. Release down, come back up, come into that Z sit, and twist towards the floor. Slow, deep breaths. Trying to fill the left part of your rib cage with the inhale. Good. We're going to progress this. You always have the option to continue to do what we did the set before, or go back to one that we've already done. So this time, we're going to lift up onto our hand. The shoulder is not over the wrist, but like you're pushing yourself away. Your left knee is pointing up towards the sky, foot is on the ground. Your right foot tucks behind that left heel. So we're going to start with the hand behind the head. We're going to push the hand down and away from you like we did on the block at the beginning to create that side crunch in the right side of your rib cage. Then the left knee or right knee pushes down to lift up and really side crunch on the left side, right side. Sit back down. Push the hand away, crunch, lift, crunch more. Good. Keep doing this. One thing that you will find yourself doing is arching the back and lifting the chest. Try to keep the chest facing more towards the side edge of your mat than towards the sky, right? Not wrong. That just takes it out of that side crunch and makes it more extension, right? So it's not necessarily wrong. It just is not what we're focusing on today. So can you keep your left shoulder stacked on top of your right in that lifted position? Good. Take both legs long and twist, reaching towards your right foot. Keep your left sit bone grounded. And you don't have to touch where I'm touching. You can touch at your knee. You can even use your thigh. Good. We're going to repeat this, loaded with resistance. So take the band around your left foot. Bring the foot back. The hand is in line with the shoulder, but forward of the shoulder. This time you should be able to hold your handle or the loop. So you're going to start by pushing the hand down and away from your body to create that side crunch. And then this time as you lift onto your right knee, stretch the left arm beside your ear. Bend the elbow to bring it back down. Push the hand crunch, reach and lift. Push the hand crunch, reach and lift. Let's do a few more. And yes, the band is somewhat awkward. Last one. Lower the hips. Keep the band where it is, straighten the legs. Twist. And reach down your right leg with your left hand. Keep the left sit bone grounded on the earth. Good. So we're going to do all of that on the other side. So first we start in that Z set. So right knee inside the arch of your left foot. You can have your left foot as close to your bottom as is comfortable. This time I'm going to just demonstrate it with the squishy ball, but you can use the block the same way that we did. The block of the ball is in line with your left hip. Hand is on the ball, elbow is straight. You're going to take your hand, right hand, onto your rib cage, push the ribs into your hand, and roll or push the block out. Come back up. Push, and then reach out. So it's not that we're trying to stretch, right? Not wrong. We're really trying to accentuate that shift of the rib cage to the right, which creates contraction on the left side of the rib cage. You might try, as you go over, to stretch your arm over your head. If you lose that side crunch, maybe just start by taking the hand behind your head first. You want to be honest with your movement in order to create more of that mobility in lateral flexion. Hold. Really side crunch on your left side. And then come out of it. Move the block. Have your band close by. We're going to come down onto your left elbow, forearms at 45 degrees. So it's not straight forward. It's not straight out, but in between. Right leg is straight. Left knee is just slightly in front of your left hip. And your hips are stacked. You're going to start first by moving the rib cage away from the floor. So create that side crunch and then lift into a modified side plank. Lower down, crunch, lift. Lower down, crunch, lift. So more of the lift is coming from the crunch of your obliques activating on the side. So we can do side planks in so many different ways. And this is just one focus, right? We're really trying to accentuate what it feels like to use lateral flexion as a strength. Good. Come up into the Z set and rotate towards your left thigh, either both hands on the ground, maybe left elbow on the ground, right hand on the ground, or maybe both. So second set, we're going to offer the progression of resistance. So it's an option, it's not a must. We're going to wrap it around the arch of your right foot. Stretch the right leg long. Bring the elbow to the ground. Side of your left hip is fully on the floor. Right hip is stacked on top. Front of your core is engaged. We're just going to bring the band behind our head. Crunch and lift. Sit. Crunch and lift. Sit. Keep it up. We're doing 8 total or around that amount. I tend to lose count when I talk. So 3 more. Remembering to find that squish or crunch before you lift. Good. Go ahead and release it. Come back to the Z-sit and stretch it out. So one thing that you may find that is happening is as we work on this lateral flexion, rotation also improves. So you may find that as you move through this and we start to twist, that the twists get progressively easier each time. You may not find that. Good. So next progression, you can continue to do it on the elbow, or left hand is in line with your left hip, forward of your left shoulder. Right foot is on the ground with the knee pointing straight up. Left toes tucked behind the right heel. And take our hand behind our head, or if you prefer, on the rib cage, so you can feel the ribs shift into the hand and then lift up onto that bottom knee. Good. And what we're looking for here is that we're lifting by crunching. So we're not trying to extend our spine. If the hand is behind the head, the elbow continues to point straight up towards this guy. If the hand is on the rib cage, you're feeling the rib cage push straight into the hand. If you want to progress it, you can reach the arm straight over your ear, really accentuating that side crunch on the left side of your rib cage. Good. Take a break. Stretch both legs long. And we're going to twist towards our right leg, left leg. So second set of these, you have the option to use resistance. You have the option to do exactly what you did the first time, or to go back to the one on your elbow. So this time you should be able to hold the handle or the end of the loop. Hand in line with your hip. Rotate your chest towards the long edge of your mat, or the edge of your mat if it's the front edge of your mat. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're lifting, side crunching first, push down and away, and then arm reaches over your head. Good. Sometimes resistance can actually help. It can help keep us in that steady line and not go into extension. It can help stabilize the shoulder on the ground. Hopefully you're starting to feel that awareness of that C crunch in your side body. One more. Good. Keep the band on your foot. Stretch the leg. Reach the hand down your left leg and twist. Good. Release. So we want to have your resistance band towards the front edge of your mat. And you want to have your weight towards the front edge of your mat. And then we're going to come to hands and knees. So first start with just tucking and untucking your pelvis. So creating a little lumbar flexion and extension. We're not forcing into extension. And then start to move into full cat-cow. And you can kind of go back into that somatic experiencing, kind of experiencing the body and whatever form your cat-cow needs to take, allow that to happen. And then come to where your belly is released towards the floor. Push the hands as if you're pushing the earth away, and you're going to shift your ribs to the right. And notice if when you shift the ribs to the right, are you shifting your pelvis to the right? Or are you just shifting the ribs to the right? So look at me from the back for a few seconds. So oftentimes when people shift their ribs to the right, they also shift their pelvis to the right. Can you shift your pelvis to the left and push your ribs to the right? Come out of that, do it again. Ribs to the right, pelvis to the left. Head goes to the left. Do it again. Good. Now round through your spine. Shift your pelvis to the left, to the right, and the hips to the left, and the pelvis, the ribs to the left. And now go in and out of that. So push ribs to the left, pelvis to the right, head to the right. Do that a couple of more times. And then drop the belly towards the floor. Now see if you can put it all together. The rib cage is moving the opposite direction of the shoulders and the pelvis the whole time. Switch directions. And if you can't do it, don't overthink it. Just know that it's there for you to try it. Good. Take your right toes back. Balance on your left knee. Push the left foot and left knee into the floor. Side crunch to take your right knee to your right shoulder and then cross it behind. Tap it to the other side of your mat. Keep pushing left foot down, knee down, crunch, cross, crunch, cross. So see if you can create now that lift of your pelvis towards your rib cage. Take the leg straight back. Flip the left foot behind you. Come onto your right hand and stack your left shoulder over your right shoulder. So you're in a gate pose. The side of the rib cage that's closest to the floor. So the left side of your rib cage, pull it further away from the floor and go really long in the right side of your waist. Take your right hand to the side of your waist, and without crunching, lift your right leg. You're going to tap 5 times. So don't let the right side of your waist get shorter. Take your right foot down, reach your right arm up, come all the way up. So now you're in this side half kneeling. Reach your right hand across your belly, side bend, and reach your left arm over, bend the knee out over your toe. Come out of that. Crunch in the left side, hand to the ground, right arm to your ear, right leg straight, right side body stays long, tap. Let right leg up and down, keeping shoulders stacked. So try not to roll the chest towards the floor. Try to roll the chest straight forward, or even think of rolling it up towards this guy. Then foot to the ground, lift up, reach right hand in front, side bend, and then take the knee over the toes. One more time. Side bend, left hand down. Right leg straight, right arm over the ear. Exaggerate that side crunch on the right, Exaggerate the length on the right, left, or the right. Exaggerate the side crunch on the left. Exaggerate the length on the right. And toe tap 5 times. Good. Foot comes down. Reach it up. Right hand reaches in front. Left hand over, side crunch. Bend the knee. Good. Hand comes down. Knee comes down. So right knee comes on the floor. You're going to step right foot inside of your right arch, or left arch. This left knee is slightly bent. Left hand in line with your left hip. You're going to come into a side plank with really exaggerating the crunch on the left side. So lift up, crunch, lower down. Lift up, crunch, lower down. Lift up, crunch, left side, lower down. Lift up, crunch, lower, hand to the ground, knees to the ground. Sit back, child's pose. Breathe. Lift back up to tabletop and round to going through just a few cycles of your regular cat-cow. And then add that rib movement. Think of pushing the ribs in the opposite direction of the shoulders and hips, and go both directions 3 times. And come to a neutral spine. Take your left leg back. Press the front of your right foot and right shin firmly down into the ground. Lift the left leg. Side crunch to bring knee to shoulder. And then cross it behind. Lengthen the left side of your body. Side crunch. Lengthen. Exhale, side crunch. Lengthen. One more time. And then take your left leg back, flip the right leg behind you, come into that side gate pose. And lift the right side of your rib cage as far away from the floor as you can. Keep the left side of your body super long, so hand on your waist, tap the foot 5 times. Do not allow the side that your leg is lifting to get shorter. Foot to the ground. Come on up. Left arm crosses in front, right arm over. Side crunch, and then bend the knee out over your toe. Come up. Side crunch to the right, hand to the ground, or a block. Should have offered that a long time ago. Stay long, tap. 2, 3, 4, 5. Foot down. Side crunch. Push the knee out over the toe. Last time, hand to the ground. Leg straight. Pull the right side of the rib cage away from the floor. Stay long on the left. Tap. 5. Foot to the ground. Side crunch. Bend the knee. Reach it back up. Hand to the ground. Right knee to the ground. Take left foot to the ground. Right foot right inside of your arch. Right hand is in line with your hips. Push the earth away. So find that side crunch first. And then you're going to lift and arc all the way through your right side. Tap. Lift and arc all the way through your right side. My chest is almost facing the ground. In order to use the side rather than extension. So extension is not wrong. It's just not what we're doing today. Good. Lower down and come into child's. Take a few deep breaths here. We got 5 minutes. We're going to do a few more things kind of flowed together on each side. So first, we're going to come to hands and knees. And tuck your toes under. Lift the hips up and back into downward facing dog. Let the knees bend slightly. Push the floor away with your hands. And as if you're trying to drive your fingers towards the front of the mat, as you reach your hips and you're on the opposite direction. So grow long in your right side of your waist. So pull your right hip towards the wall behind you. And then test, can you lift your right hand off the ground? If you can't, come to hands and knees and do it on hands and knees. Good. Bring the hand back down. Walk your feet to the front of your mat and roll up. We're going to grab the resistance band. So I'm flipping the resistance band behind my back so it doesn't hit me in the face. You're going to cross your right foot behind your left. And you're going to start to push the arch of your right foot strongly down into the ground. You're going to side bend to the left and then pull the bands apart. Good. Come back up. Crunch to the left, pull the band apart. Come back up. Side bend to the left, pull the band apart. So the right hand isn't moving a whole lot, but it is still pulling the band apart. So you're creating this nice and a isometric stretch on your right side body as we work on creating that crunch contraction on the left side. Good. Step your right foot back. Take the band out in front of you. Right hand stays out in front of you. Twist, pulling your left elbow back. Both arms out in front. Twist, pulling your left hand to your left chest. So from this point, it looks like this. Elbow pulls back. We're not straightening that back arm. We're just pulling it to our chest like a bow and arrow. Come back to downward facing dog. Knees bent or straight. Start to pull both of your hips back towards the wall behind you, concentrating a little bit more on the left side. So pull that left hip back, and then can you lift your left arm off the ground? If not, come to knees and do it on your knees. Hands to the ground. Walk your hands back towards your feet. Roll up. Cross your left leg behind your right. Take the bands over your head. Push the arch of your left foot firmly into the ground. And then you're going to side bend to the right. Pull the band apart. Come back up. Okay. So we use our exhales to create that side crunch. We can think of thrusting the ribs off to the left each time we crunch to the right. One more. Good. And then step your left leg back. Take the band out in front of you, and you're going to pull back like you're pulling back a bow and arrow. Both arms forward. Pull back. Both arms forward. Back. 2 more. So your left arm is, your left arm is staying straight. Right elbow pulls straight back. Good. Release the band. Step to the front of your mat. Inhale, stretch the arms up. Grow long in your side bodies. Push the heels down. Start to bend the knees around the spine. Step back. Down dog. Round forward. Plank pose. Breathe into the parts of your body that we've been working on the whole time. So as you inhale, think of inflating your side body. Knees wide, toes touch, set the hips back in child's pose. Press down through your right hand, reach your left arm under, twist. Reach your left sit bone back more. Reach your right sit bone back more. Switch hands. Left hand presses down, right arm reaches under. Reach your right sit bone back more, growing long in the right side of your body. And breathe into the sides of your waist. Come back to center and just shift the hips side to side. And this concludes your lateral flexion, lateral stability, mobility class. I hope you enjoyed.